On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks get a gutsy win against the Atlanta Hawks. Kyrie Irving, exalt him. He was absolutely incredible. We'll talk about his game and the reason the Mavs won this game and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
We have cracked.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Rusty.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome, you are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager at the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being an everydayer and making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. Subscribe to our free Locked On Mavs newsletter. Check the QR code in the here on the show or the link in the description. I almost said check the QR code here on the screen. It doesn't matter. Today's episode is sponsored by Built. Start earning points on rent you're already paying by go to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's joinbilt.com/LockedOnNBA. And joining me, as always, on a postgame, the postgame prodigy from the Great Slightly Biased YouTube channel. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
Kyrie Irving, man. Woo, what a player.
What a player. What a player. He's the hot man, the hot player.
He's the bad man.
We'll talk about Kyrie, obviously. We'll get into Spencer Dinwiddie, Jaden Hardy, and Naji Marshall carrying the way. They were like the setup pitchers, basically, in this game. It felt like they were the middle relievers throughout this game, and then Kyrie was the closer that came in and closed it. I also want to talk about the insane decisions that Jason Kidd had to make in this game. That usually we would come on this show and be like, why did he do that? Why did he do this? Why did he do this? Why did he do this? They all ended up working in this game because of how crazy injury and illness-ridden this Mavericks team is. So let's start there slightly. Kyrie Irving steps up. He was questionable in this game with an illness. I love when they just write illness, and it's like on the injury report, it says injury/illness. And then it has like a semicolon, and then it just says illness, and then it has a slash, and it just says illness again because they don't like say what the illness is. Usually it's like injury, right foot, and then it's like, plantar fascia, or something like that, or Luka, right wrist sprain. It's just illness for Kyrie, and we know that it's not just like a fake illness because Quentin Grimes missed this game because of illness, and Dereck Lively ended up leaving at halftime after 11 minutes with illness. And it was going through the Mavericks apparently. And early in this game, I did not think Kyrie looked very good in this game. Yeah. You could tell that he was struggling out there. He just played a tough, game the night before against Miami, and he comes out first half, just did not look like a normal Kyrie game. And I about to chalk it up to say, well, they just don't have it. Kyrie's not going to carry him, all that. 3 of 13 in the first half, just 10 points. Minus 15 when Kyrie played in the 17 minutes. Not a great plus minus even just for one player. But then the second half came, and honestly just the fourth quarter came. That fourth quarter, 16 points, 6 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3, plus 11 when he was on the floor. He just got it done. And honestly, it was just him making shots. It was the same kind of shots he was getting in the first half. He was just putting them down in that clutch moment.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he just needed to see a few drop. Like, Dyson Daniels did a tremendous job on him. Dyson Daniels has had an unbelievable start to the season defensively. He did a really good job and, was blowing up. I mean, the dribble, like Dyson Daniels just really quickly here. The way he gets around screens is unbelievable. It's like they're not even there. Like he's just through them and he blows up every dribble handoff. So that's something the Mavericks go to a lot where they're playing that 5-out offense and the center's at the top of the key. And you're trying to run, your handoffs to get your ball handlers the ball.
That's like everything the Mavericks run, pick and roll and handoffs. Really that's all of it.
Literally it. But that wasn't there for the Mavs. And credit to Dyson Daniels. But then once Kyrie just saw a few, and it was like the possessions where he looked and Trae Young got switched on him. He's like, okay, like I have to hit this three, hit it. Had Bogey switch on to him. Okay, I have to hit this three. Kobe Buffkin. Okay, I have to get going now. And then once that happened, it was like it didn't matter. At that point, when he was back going, it does not matter who's guarding him. He's going to hit shot after shot. So just incredible. I mean, I'm going back to what you said earlier, though. I'm happy they don't list what the illnesses are.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just funny to me. But yeah,
Would you rather them say? Would you rather Quentin Grimes diarrhea?
explosive. I don't know, flu, cold, like I don't know, something. It could be easy stuff. Migraine, mono. I don't know. They have listed migraine before for guys.
Yeah, this wasn't like the Phoenix Suns game 7 where the game's over and then everyone comes back out and it's like, guys, they're actually sick.
No, so they were sick. They were sick before. They were in Miami last night though, so you also kind of wonder about that.
Maybe there are some illnesses going around though
with the team.
No, like around the league.
Yeah, no, I'm not questioning it for sure, but we got to see a Kyrie Irving, like a classic Kyrie Irving fourth quarter performance in this one, and yeah, just from that like 7th minute on in the fourth quarter, another three, fall away three, gave him a 9-point lead. He had 14 points in that fourth quarter, and at the 5:25 mark, he had 14 points, and the Hawks had 14 points in the fourth quarter.
Killer. I mean, absolutely killer stuff. And one night, barely 24 hours after a very consequential missed free throw, that was on the back of his mind. That's how these players are. And he comes out and just takes over a game and refuses to let the Mavericks lose. Was this even a clutch game?
I was thinking about that just as we got on. I think it was. It had to have been at some point.
I don't think it got within 5, actually.
I think you're right. I think you're right. It was 6. It was 6 a bunch, but it kept being 6.
And that's what a star does. The star says, we melt down whenever a clutch game happens. I'm not even letting this get below 5.
No, but you know what that means?
What?
They don't get credit for it as a clutch win. So the Mavs are still like what, 1-7 or 2-7?
2-7. That's all right. Games. But we don't need a clutch record if we never
That's
get
right.
there.
A dub, whatever way you can get a dub, get the dub, right?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So, but Kyrie in this game, the Hawks pretty much healthy across the board with their guys. Dyson Daniels, one of the best, maybe the best perimeter defender in the NBA right now.
Mm-hmm.
Luka out, Klay Thompson out before the game, Quentin Grimes out, Lively left at halftime, Marty out, like 5 rotation players, maybe 5 starters out for the Mavs. Just a gutsy performance to close it. And when the Mavs allowed 76 points in the paint to the Hawks, there's so many things in this game that just went wrong. And I think what we saw from Kyrie Irving in that fourth quarter is just how a star can cover all your weaknesses. At a certain point, you just give him the ball and you just let him do your thing, score 16 in the fourth, make it happen, and you can cover up a bunch of weaknesses. The Mavs had a bunch of turnovers early in this game, made up for it, and they came back. They had 17 total, which doesn't, or 18 total, which doesn't sound like a lot, but they averaged like 12, 13. And they allowed 76 points in the paint, which is insane.
Yeah. And I mean, they had 8 turnovers in the first quarter. So that 18 number is much higher than their average, but they really kind of figured out towards the end of the game. But yeah, man, like you said, I mean, that's why the clutch stuff was so great last year, because that was literally the formula was, okay, we just have these 2 guys who we know at any given moment, Luka, Kyrie, can go out and get a tough bucket. And there's just not a lot of teams around the league who can have answers for this. And it hasn't been there yet this season. And when you watch around the league, there's just, I feel what's made this start to the season so frustrating in the record column, wins and losses, is I really do think this has been probably the second best team in the West this season. Just how I feel whenever I watch these. When the playoff series comes, I think the Mavericks will be viewed as probably the second best team in the Western Conference by most people. And it's just getting there. I just really wish we can get to March without having to sweat every single game.
It's kind of a wild thing to say when they're in 9th right now.
I know, but that's just the way that I feel. Like I feel like their formula works. We know what Kyrie and Luka can do. Like Naji, we'll talk about him here in a bit, I'm sure. 3 straight games with 20 points. Their supporting cast is better. The example, the proof is in the pudding. Like they're winning these games that otherwise they probably wouldn't have won in years past because their supporting cast has gotten so much stronger.
Yeah, they have proof of concept that some others, like the Suns, the Suns have been terrible without Durant, but when Durant comes back, that's a good team.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
They don't have proof of concept in the playoffs like the Mavericks do. Same thing.
This Warriors team doesn't.
Well, I don't know. I guess this version of the Warriors team doesn't, but Steph and Draymond have more proof of concept than anyone in the whole league. So
for sure, but it's a different team now.
Lakers kind of have some, but not really. Are you worried about that team?
No, I've walked it back. I've walked back my walk back. I walked back the walk back and my walk back. It's a whole thing.
You walked that dog and took it right back to the pound.
Yeah.
I'm done with you.
Yep.
Coming up, let's talk about how the Mavs got there. Kyrie closed, but let's talk about the setup men. Let's talk about Naji, like Slightly said. Let's talk about Hardy. And dare I say, let's give credit to Spencer Dinwiddie. Coming up.
You don't believe you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Built. Everyone that I know at some point in their life has had maybe I don't know enough people, but at some point in life has had to pay rent. And you know that if you pay rent and you haven't heard of Built, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Built, B-I-L-T. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. So let's break it down. There's no cost to join Built, and as a member, you earn valuable points on rent and your everyday spending. Built points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of yet. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Built points toward. That feels like 700,000 feels like all of them. How could there be more than 700,000 types of hotels and properties? So if you're not earning points on your rent, my question is, why not? Check it out. Start earning points on rent if you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA. That's JOIN, join, built, BILT.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you, joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNBA to start earning points on your rent payments today. Also brought to you by Robinhood. Right now, with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. With Robinhood Gold, it allows you to get the silver spoon rates and the perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of the high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply for product specific disclosures. Visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show. Two things real quick. Number one, we are still the number one Locked On newsletter in all of Locked On. 1,000 subs. Shout out to all of you. 1,000. I will say no one else has cracked 700 yet. We're crushing everybody. So appreciate each and every one of you that have done that. Second thing, we've got a postcast, the show that'll go live on Locked On Sports Dallas, the YouTube channel. They'll also put the audio feed. So if you see the Locked On Dallas Mavericks postcast show, our guy Jeff Biggs was hired by Locked On to do that show. He's also going to do Cowboys and some Rangers stuff and all that. So if you want a postgame show that's a more immediate reaction than ours, you can go check out that show, and that show will be in the feed as well. So shout out to him, and that will be in the feed. Locked On Mavericks on audio, and on YouTube, it's the Locked On Sports Dallas YouTube channel. All right, Slightly, let's get into this game. I want to talk about the setup guys, because this was one of those where I thought Jaden Hardy needed to be playable in this game. I sent it as a text out to all the insiders today. I said, Klay's going to be out, Grimes going to be out, and Kyrie is questionable. Jaden Hardy has to be playable today. You can't just have a game with, a half Kyrie and Dinwiddie being the only guys that can kind of score for you at will. Naji Marshall should probably be included in that list too. But he needed to be good, and he had an up and down game, but he scored 23 points. He had production, 23 points, 8 of 18 from the field, got things done for the Mavericks, 3 steals, couple of assists. It's not perfect, but he got production and the Mavs needed it.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly. They just needed him to go out there and be a playable player. And he was that tonight. He had some good aggressive drives. He had some really impressive finishes through contact. He had some really impressive, attacks on the rim where he was seeking out contact. And, those are all the plays that we like. And he still had some of the moments where he gets, inside the 3-point line and there's next to zero plan whatsoever. And it leads to either a really bad shot or, he did have 6 turnovers in this game. But, he did do the things that you were looking for him to do. And these are the games with young players that you get where you see a lot of good things, you see a lot of bad things, and you try to iron out the bad things. You know, as I've mentioned before on here, it's just like this Mavs team is in a weird spot where they can't really afford to have that on a nightly basis from a player. And that's why the Hardy stuff is just weird. It's weird. It's always weird for young guys on teams that are contending for a championship, especially young guys like Hardy who need on-ball reps and they need this like experience. So tonight was a night. It was like a blast from the past almost, having a young guy go out there and make mistakes, but do good things.
For Hardy, it's one of those things where, last year and even the year before that, we were talking about Hardy's trajectory and saying he could follow in the line of the Jordan Pooles, the Tyrese Maxeys, the Anthony Simonses as like a 2 guard that can handle the ball a little bit, but is mostly off ball, but can fill it up and score a bunch. And it looked like he could go in that trajectory. The thing about those guys is they took a leap in their either 3rd or 4th year. They're all 22 when they took that leap. And so we were really watching that for him. They all got like 20 minutes in their 2nd year, or the year before they took this leap. They all got 20 minutes a game on their teams, and their teams weren't necessarily very good except for the Warriors and Poole. Or I guess even that Poole team with the Warriors was not great that year, but they all had an opportunity, and Hardy just didn't have that. He had a team that went to the finals as his 2nd year team, so he just didn't get that opportunity. And so it may take a little bit longer for Hardy to become what he's going to become in the NBA. But to me, the decision-making is at least better. I was worried right out of the gate, 17 seconds into the game, where he chucked that pass right over Kyrie Irving's head cross court. Yeah. I was worried. I was also worried when he called for the Mavericks to challenge that out of bounds thing at 5 minutes left in the first quarter that the Mavericks didn't get again. What are they, like 2-13 now on challenges? It's crazy how bad they've been on challenges. But yeah, he does make some of those decisions, like you said, where he flies in and tries to finish at the rim or just drives in without really a plan. And you can get away with that at lower levels with just insane athleticism, right? You just hang in the air longer than somebody else, but he's not going to get away with that in the NBA and hasn't so far. But 6 turnovers, that's not great either. I think, some of that was the first quarter with Dyson Daniels and all that stuff you were talking about earlier. But the decision-making does seem to be at least incrementally getting better for Hardy. It may not be enough. Like, he may not get better enough for this Mavericks team long-term this season, but they needed it tonight, and they got exactly what they needed from him tonight, albeit not a perfect game for him.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just it was a game where the Mavericks were without a bunch of guys, and they needed everyone to step up, and Hardy did his thing. I mean, Hardy, we leave this game saying that's what we needed, especially with Kyrie popping off and Spencer Dinwiddie popping off. Hardy did exactly what was needed out of him.
Spencer Dinwiddie, let's talk about him. 35 minutes, which we were bemoaning yesterday, 27 minutes. He gets 35 in this one. And you know what? I'm fine with it.
Because he was hitting shots.
Turns out that's a difference. 22 points, 4 assists, only 2 turnovers, hit 4 threes, 3 of them basically in a row in the 3rd quarter. The Mavericks were down 80-84, they were down 77-84. Dinwiddie hits 3, and it's 86-86, like tied the game at that point. Then he hits PJ rolling to the rim on another one and capped off a 22-9 stretch in the 3rd quarter where the Mavericks came back. They were down 11 at the very beginning of the 3rd. And Mark Followill, there's something about Followill this year, the Mavs play-by-play broadcaster on TV, where he's just seems way more invested in this team than Pat, as a fan. I don't know if it's the change in broadcast or whatever, but he was so invested. He's like, this Mavericks team looked like they didn't have anything at the beginning of that 3rd quarter. Would you ever think that this Mavericks team would come back? And I was like, I agree with you. It looked like they didn't have anything in that 3rd quarter. They were down 11. The Hawks were rolling. This Mavericks team, everybody was injured and out and ill and all that. And then Dinwiddie goes on that little run in the 3rd quarter. And that 22-9 stretch was massive. The Mavs took a lead into the 4th quarter.
Yeah, they're really not even in a position to win the game for Spencer Dinwiddie pulling this team up from the mud in the 3rd quarter. So shout out to Dinwiddie. This really is the reality of the Dinwiddie stuff where we're gonna have to remind ourselves this like in a week or two from now when we're like, what 26 minutes for Dinwiddie? Like what was like, this is it. Cause he can catch fire and you don't really know what it's coming necessarily. Cause it's not like, he doesn't really feel like a Tim Hardaway player where Tim, you knew the first shot of the game. Where it was like, okay, Tim doesn't have it tonight.
Right. Yeah.
Dinwiddie can like catch fire randomly, like with 4 minutes left to the 3rd quarter. But last night I feel like we were pretty fair about Spence last night. Yeah. We were questioning why he was in the game. For me, I was more so like, why like any player playing 22 straight minutes is kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's
like any player. But his decision making I thought was fine last night. It was just the missed shots, and I thought again tonight he did a really good job in that department.
He had a couple of really good plays. He had a play in the second quarter where he drove, nice pull-up little jumper. And I'm like, all right, that's the kind of stuff I want to see from you, not just the only pull-up threes, right? Drive a little bit, get a little pull-up jumper, get something going at the rim or in the paint or something. And we saw that early, and then we didn't really hear from him until that third quarter where he went on that run, which was wild. The other run that we need to talk about is in the first quarter, and that is thanks to Naji Marshall and a weird lineup that the Mavs played that Dinwiddie was also in. And so we'll get into that, how the Mavs got this win with a first quarter run that may have saved them then, too. We'll talk about that and more coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by Skims. Skims underwear. It's great. Told you yesterday, I took this over the weekend and I needed to go, I was going hiking and I needed something that was going to keep its form. You know, you don't want to keep like pulling down your underwear all the time when you're walking or when you're hiking or when you're going through and you're out and there's a bunch of people around and all that. Skims did its job. It kept its shape and it felt good. It was breathable and I was comfortable the whole time. The thing you want about your underwear, you want with your underwear is to not think about it, right? If you're thinking about it, usually it's something bad. And so I did not have to think about Skims underwear until I got home and went, oh, these Skims underwear are really good. Shop Skims men's at skims.com/LockedOnNBA, SKIMS.com/LockedOnNBA. Let them know that we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows so they know that we sent you. Again, select podcast in that survey, skims.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you're looking for the perfect gift for the whole family, Skims just launched their biggest holiday shop ever, also available at skims.com/LockedOnNBA, skims.com/LockedOnNBA.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right, Slightly, I want to talk about Naji Marshall. Another 20-point game for the knife.
Nice.
22 points, 6 boards. Hit 2 threes again. He never just hits one, ever. 0.
That is a strange stat.
2 or more. I love it. And he was part of a lineup in the first quarter that also like kind of saved this team because they were down 13 with 2:09 left. 2:09 left in the first. They were down 13. It was 18-31. The offense just couldn't get anything going. That's when we were thinking, or at least I was thinking, Kyrie doesn't have it. This team has no chance in this game. And then Kyrie subs out, and there's a Dinwiddie, Naji Marshall, Omax, PJ Washington, Gafford lineup that is just one of those where you go, first of all, that's a huge lineup. Everybody's 6'6" and above, but just a weird one. And Naji Marshall, I thought, helped run that, was kind of running point sometimes with that group, hit a 3 at the buzzer, and it ended up being 28-31, a Mavs 10-0 run to end that first quarter, a quarter where you mentioned they had 8 turnovers in that quarter, and that kind of helped save them right there.
Yeah, I mean, he's done a lot of great things for the Mavericks. I mean, that just the fact that we mentioned so far in this game, you had the Mavericks just needed something, some sign of life in the third quarter of this game. Spencer Dinwiddie picked up the team. The Mavericks needed something desperately in the first quarter of this game. Naji Marshall picked up the team. So all of these guys sort of helping out are so important. Naji's like an enigma to me. I don't understand. I saw him like late in the game get picked up by Dyson Daniels, and I'm like, all right, I'm a little bit worried to hear, like, you know, Naji's dribble moves are so herky-jerky. Like, I feel like it just, like, doesn't matter. I don't know. It looks like it shouldn't be working at the level at which it works. But it works. I mean, the floaters, man, they're just insane.
I think the word in English that we came up with as a society is unorthodox.
Unorthodox. Yes, that is his game.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Naji Marshall is not like a knife that you pull out of a drawer and you go, oh, I know what this is. It's a knife. It's like a knife you pull out and you go, oh my God, what is this? This is cool. Like,
yeah, it's like the knife that that kid in school posts a picture of online. You're like, whoa, you'd be on the lookout for this guy.
It's got like a flask in the handle or something. Like it's got like a secret compartment or something. You're like, oh my God, this is cool. Like,
yeah.
He's amazing. Honestly, like I kind of mentioned it, I touched on it earlier, but he should be considered like a guard for this team. The way that he handles the ball, brings the ball up, the way that he creates offense. Like at this point, I'm starting to pencil him in. I write down where all the Mavs kind of fit and like envision the team. All right, what does this team need? What do they have and all that? He's like a shot creator for them, and he should be considered a shot creator for them. I'm excited to see him play with Luka now, if he's going to play like this, and maybe he has confidence in his 3 ball now, 2 of 3 in this game too.
Yeah, that's really big, the three ball. I mean, this is how the Pelicans used him. The Pelicans used him as
Yeah.
like a backup point guard pretty much. So, yeah, that was one of the big things I was excited about, his playmaking. That was one of the things, this gets brought up all the time, Derek Jones Jr. or Naji. What the Mavericks needed was more of the Naji skill set. And you could just tell how important that is for this offense. And especially so far this season where, Luka hasn't been the MVP Luka that we're accustomed to. And now he's missed time and stuff like that. Naji's just carried the load so heavily for this team.
Absolutely. It's kind of funny because Derek Jones Jr.'s had multiple like games with like a bunch of points, like 18 or 20 points too.
Yeah, but it's different. It's different.
I know, but it's like, well, they kind of both got what they needed, both teams in that.
Yeah,
way.
exactly. I mean, I'm not trying to poo-poo Derek Jones Jr. here.
Felt like a weird trade, even though it wasn't for either of them. Yeah,
but it was basically though.
Kind
like,
of, yeah.
For the Mavs, it was almost like a trade. Like you're trading off Derek Jones Jr. for Naji.
They signed it. PJ Washington, another double-double, 11 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, 3 blocks, a steal. Just doing it. Hit a corner 3.
Yeah, the corner 3 is nice. Yeah, he just making plays. I mean, wasn't his best game scoring-wise or anything like that. They didn't – but Jalen Johnson was on him tonight. So,
yeah.
The post game wasn't really where it's been in games past because the Hawks actually have a really good guard defender, so they don't have to use one of their wings on a guy like Kyrie Irving. So, that's the post game and PJ getting 20 plus. That's all like icing on top of the cake for this team. But I want to point out his 10 rebounds because when the Mavericks go small, which is something that they did a decent amount in this game, his effort on the boards is so important. The way that he attacks rebounds, the way that he, boxes out, all of that stuff is so crucial for this team, a team that has been bit in the ass a couple of times when it comes to rebounding so far this season. And it was really apparent in the games that he missed.
Yes, huge. And especially the ones without PJ or Lively. Those games were just brutal for him. What did you think about Kidd's decision to play Maxey 6.5 minutes in the fourth quarter and Gafford only 3.5?
They went. I mean, the Hawks were going super small at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Okongwu's been a nothing player for them. Just really kind of disappointing stuff.
He's like a 6'8" center, and it's hard
tough
to try and figure out what he is.
Yeah, he's not it, I don't think. And they decided to go small at the end of this game, so the Mavs sort of matched that with Maxey, and I thought he did a really, really good job. And the Mavs defense really kind of clamped down late in the game, and putting Maxey out there as the 5, it's been rough for him so far this season, but tonight was probably the best he's looked defensively since coming back, which is kind of weird because second night of a back-to-back. But when you put him around like a bunch of other switchable defenders, that's when it all like really makes sense, So
he had
really helps.
He had a sequence in the fourth quarter that was massive. Mavs were up by 10, and then Maxey gets a huge block on Jalen Johnson at the rim, massive block with like 3:50 left in the game, and then like the 2 sequences later, the Mavs are only up by 6. The Hawks had hit a couple of baskets, and then Kyrie hits Maxey on a rolling dunk. They go back up by 8. And that was just a huge sequence where you get a block and a finish on a roll. It's like that's what they need. They just needed some production from that spot, and they got some of it. What did he finish with after that? After a couple of those things, 7 points, 7 rebounds, an assist, a block, and a steal. Like in 20 minutes. Great, cut that in half. Again, that's okay. If that's what his normal production would be. But there you go. Like that's what you need from him.
And hitting a 3. I mean, can we get the 3 ball back to like a respectable number? That would be really big.
Huge. The Mavs did. I just realized they shot 16 of 35 from 3. 46%.
They started to bomb threes in the second half because they weren't really shooting too many threes in the first half, but 2 10s or 2 10s, 10 threes in the third quarter. I don't know where 2 came from in my mind. And then they went 6 of 9 in the fourth. Graded, I don't know how many of those are Kyrie. I think 5 of those are Kyrie. So, I mean, when you just have great isolation creators and great pull-up shooters like Kyrie and Luka, and one of those guys is going.
As a team, it's just nice to see the dirty work wings, the Naji and PJ lineups. Oh, they just work
those
so
guys
well.
Are hitting threes.
They just work so well for this team.
But those guys just start getting the 3 ball to consistently go. So good.
Oh, that's when you feel confident about this is the second best team in the West.
The reason why I say that, though, is I just don't – I believe in them in the playoff setting because I've seen it the last 2 years, 3 years, I guess. And every other, like one thing that you can feel comfortable about and confident in if you're the Mavs, if you're a Mavs fan with this slow start wins-loss record wise, is a lot of other teams are going through the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And then outside of the Thunder, who we expect to be good, the teams you see at the top of the West are not teams that we've really expected to be there at the beginning of the season, like the Warriors, the Rockets, the Lakers in a way. So conventional wisdom, you would think that those teams might come back down to earth a tiny bit throughout the course of the season.
Teams you match up well with, right? Well, you got the Grizzlies above you. I think the Mavs match up decently well with them. The Nuggets, the Mavs just beat.
The Grizzlies are good.
Yeah, with when Ja returned tonight, I haven't seen how that one went, but yeah. And then the Timberwolves are trying to figure it out. They're 8-8. The Kings are 8-9. They kind of a disaster. Yeah, and the Pelicans are 4-14. They're actually a disaster, even more so.
That's 1-9 in their last 10. I mean, you're pretty much done at this point. That's like such a deep hole to dig yourself out of in the West.
They're 5 games back from 11. 5.5 games back from 10. 5.5 games. That's a lot.
If you just think you have to win around 50 games to be in the top 6 in the Western Conference, which is probably going to be around the case, then what does that mean that they have to go the rest of the season if you want to do some quick math?
I don't
want to do quick math, but do the math in your head. It's a lot. It's a lot of wins.
I'll tell you,
a lot of losses.
It's hard. It's hard for the Pelicans to come back. Make the play in. But yeah, so the Mavs, the West is very tough, but at least the Mavs have stayed afloat throughout all these clutch losses, and I'm still confident that they'll figure it out. It sounds like you are too, with
I am
some of these clutch things. And Luka hasn't played, and so we'll see. Luka, the Mavs probably have one more game without him. The Knicks game on Wednesday, we'll have a post game for that, so come back and check the show then. And then Saturday against the Jazz possibly, or Sunday against the Blazers, Luka could return. That's when we know that he's getting reevaluated on a Thursday or Friday. So check back here and subscribe to the newsletter. Check the QR code. There's a QR code for the newsletter, QR code for other things to follow us on. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. We'll be back tomorrow with another show. And thanks so much for hanging out with us here on Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Boom.
We're back.